Finally, with the 10th episode, we get the big reveal of what Desper has been training Boji in. Now, granted, I felt like my predictions were correct, that it was more about technique than brute strength, but I really wasn't expecting it to go down the route that it did. But this is my thoughts on episode 10, so let's jump into it. Yes, the episode opens up with Boji revealing to Kage exactly what he's wielding, and it looked like a big, huge sword, but obviously it's, what did he put it as, being a bluff. It's a bluff to what he actually wielding, which when he draws it, yes, we find out it's more like a fencing weapon. It's more of a needle sword that he's able to use. But like I said earlier, while I was kind of predicting that it wouldn't be like some big, huge weapon, my thought was going more to the idea of, well, if he can't get stronger, which they've implied that he cannot get stronger, he's going to have to figure out some way of utilizing his strength to the maximum, some way of directing something in a technique to be able to overcome things. And it was interesting because it, again, technically was trying to imply that he was getting brute strength even though he can't. So the question was he able to unlock that, remove the curse, or just redirect him in a way that would be usable for himself? And that turns into, yes, him utilizing this very needle-like weapon for acupuncture. Basically acupuncture. Being able to direct a small needle into locations to affect somebody. And yes, this is put into practice as they go to celebrate his training. He's mastered the Desper arts. And as they're celebrating, this group of guys that comes in that were, at the time, assuming was the people that beat up Desper, come in and start harassing them. And we get a little bit of sense that, or at least as Desper's putting it, that Boji has kind of learned more things. He's gotten stronger, and thus he's able to kind of brush off this insults that he's getting from these guys that are insulting Desper in this Desper art. Until eventually, yes, one of them says Desper has a face like a camel, and he's like, you can insult my apprentice all you want, but you can't insult me. That was hilarious. So yeah, this turns into a big bar fight where we once again establish that Desper's not a good fighter. And as the fighting goes on, Boji takes a hit for Desper and just jumps right back up. Like, this doesn't even phase him. And Kage is really shocked about the fact that Boji has gotten so strong that stuff like that doesn't even phase him. But this is when we get to see Boji in action as he, he's dodging, obviously. We've seen that before. Boji's really good and very agile and able to dodge. But he clonks one of the guys on the chin, and after a while of him kind of sitting there, he stumbles over and falls over, and it's implied that he's directing these punches in the perfect place to disorient them. He's tactfully hitting in the weakest points. As Desper puts it, everybody has weaknesses, and if you can strike that one weakness, no matter how much strength you have, you can obviously put somebody down. And this continues as the guy draws a weapon and Boji draws his weapon. The guy's like, Desper's like, are you ready to actually give up your life? And they go at each other, and yes, he knocks out the guy. And as Desper's pointing it out, he's using this to, like acupuncture, avoid nerves and stuff and arteries to hit that one point to stop a circulation of blood and knock somebody out. And yes, he points out that he can technically use this ability to kill somebody as well. And got this little dooming look of Boji. But this is weird because following this whole scene, obviously Kage's excited about it. Boji's got this bolster of confidence. It has a scene where Desper parts ways with them for a moment, and he goes off to meet up with the guys that just fought them in the bar to go pay them, and everybody's kind of saluting Desper as if he's, obviously, he's technically the second prince. And additionally, the captain shows up, the captain of Desher. And this is cool, this is that whole kind of thing that we left off with. That captain is obviously, while Desher was, insulting Boji and told him to leave, the captain came back and gave him the letter and told him, obviously you went to the wrong person, Desper's over here, you need to see him. But it implied the captain was rooting for Boji. He was once again another person touched by Boji that wants him to succeed. And so it kind of insinuates here that the captain's coming to help them with this training, giving up some of his knights to go and act as if they're attacking Boji and Desper so that he can actually have a real world experience. And it did kind of trouble me a little bit because it in the opening of the scene, it implies that everything was set up by Desper, that this was all a ruse. And it had me questioning a little bit, did Boji actually beat them, or is he creating a false sense of security in his ability? Well, the only indication that we really get here is that the guy that, took on Boji with the weapon says that the moment that Boji drew his sword, I knew I wasn't going to win. So it implies that despite this was a setup scenario, that this was still an actual fight, and that the blows they took were real. So I don't know, it's kind of a difficult thing there. I hope it's not a sense of Desper faking or lying, but more just kind of solidifying the idea that they weren't in danger, and plus, the captain and his men were trying to help Bojji, and this is how they helped and assisted in training him, was to give him some real-world experience in combat. So I don't know, I hope it doesn't turn out down the road, Bojji goes to punch somebody and it goes, wait, you didn't do anything, and then this is all just a big fake thing. I don't think that's the case because we've obviously seen Bojji split a rock. So again, I think this is just giving Bojji real-world experience and he paid them, and again, implying that the captain himself was wanting to help Bojji in some way. This cuts to Bojji and Kage talking, and Kage eventually asks Bojji, well, how do you do those moves where you dodge a bunch? And that's where Bojji explains to Kage that he's learned his ability, his agile nature, and his ability to dodge things from this snake. And this kind of leads into them actually giving us an update on Bebin's situation as we get the viewpoint from Bebin and kind of get an update to him what's happening in the castle, that Bosse hasn't acted, Healing has been attacked, Dorsch has protected him, Appius is currently guarding the gate to the underworld, where the mirror has gone through, all implying that things are going into play that Bebin is going to have to do something about. Now, this is the kind of curious point that I have, is because obviously we established it again in this episode, that Bebin was supporting Daida. Now, the question mark then comes, is he against the idea of Bosse controlling Daida? And that means that he has to take action. He's already kind of establishing that he has to do something, and he knows that he himself alone is not going to be able to pull this off. Even though the snake is offering its help, he's like, no, I'm a snake handler. I love my snakes. I don't want you to get involved. And this kind of cuts to seeing kind of the interactions between Bebin and the snake over time, as we obviously see that Bebin sees the snake was training Bojji at some point, and he expressed that he didn't like the fact that he was training him. He knew that the snake had some sort of debt to Bojji, and that was probably why he was helping him, but Bebin still believed that Daida was more fit to be king than Bojji, and that he was going to support Daida in the end. But it was curious to see that the snake itself seen that Bojji would one day save people, that he knew that he needed to train him because he knew that one day Bojji would save the lives of others, including Daida. Now, Bebin jokes about the fact that, what are you seeing, a prophecy? He says, no, I just have a really strong feeling that one day Bojji will even save Daida, which is kind of a curious thing. I mean, I don't know if there's any kind of significance to that, other than it just being, oh, well, it played out similar to what he was feeling. So, but even still, we do see that conflict happening way back then. And that kind of leaves us with the final scene between Kage and Bojji. Now, this is kind of a difficult scene because this is one of those points where I'm watching this show where I start yelling at the screen, like, what are you doing? Do this, what are you doing? We have this little scene where Kage actually lets Bojji know the conversation that he had with Bebin. That Bebin foreseen that something was coming, there was a conspiracy within the castle. He's finally revealing to Bojji that stuff's going down at the castle, which we kind of assume this would eventually come. When is Bojji going to find out that things aren't going well for the kingdom and that possibly he'll need to go back? And it was heartbreaking here because Bojji immediately, upon finding about this, thinking about going back to the castle, where's his mind immediately go to? Well, he's just been betrayed. He thinks about Healing assigning Domas and Hakuro to him and how they attempted to kill him. So his immediate thought is that the three of them were all in a conspiracy to kill him. So he's afraid of her now. And I was like, this sucks because, of course, Kage immediately thinks about what all Healing did, coming down there and saving his life and healing him and all that kind of stuff. Whereas Bojji hasn't seen that stuff. So he immediately thinks that Healing just hates him and wants him dead. And it's like heartbreaking the entire time, yelling at the screen, Kage, tell him, what are you doing? Tell him. But it was cute because even despite the fact that I hate it, that Kage never tells Bojji what she did, I think probably respecting Healing's desire not to have him know. I don't know what would be the thought process there. But even still tells Bojji to have courage. Bojji still recalls those moments in his past where Healing took care of him. Healing desired to meet him and to know more about him. And Healing was there with him as a replacement mother. So he does decide in the end that he wants to go. So even though I hate the fact that Kage didn't tell him, at least he still sees that Healing loves him. And this leaves the episode with this one little brief scene of this rat eater, this guy in a prison cell that's eating rats, which I'm guessing is probably going to be something that Bojji's going to have to fight. Now that we've kind of established that Bojji has some capability, he's going to have to face somebody. And why not a guy that's completely covered in plate? obviously. But yeah, overall fantastic episode. I'm assuming it's going to be a while before Boji gets back to the kingdom, unless, again, somebody reveals that where the gate is to go immediately to the castle, or some sort of other method to get there. They're going to have to go, like, all the way back up the chamber, all the way back out. So it's going to be quite a while before he gets back home. Or he might possibly run into the mirror. I mean, they're both there, so there's a possibility he might run to the mirror. I doubt the mirror is going to let him back through the gate, but still. But it was cool getting this kind of showing that Boji is getting better. Seeing him fight was really fantastic. Jump back up on the table, not even messed up, and just the reading of the 3 rules that nobody gets but Kage. I was kind of surprised that Kage didn't translate it in some way, so we'll probably find out what those 3 rules are later. There's probably a sense he mentions the idea of Boji not just being stronger or more skilled, but also being a lot more mentally fortified. And that was kind of in the rules, so I'm assuming there's something in there about not just taking lives willy-nilly. You're still going to have Boji in there. That was the reason why he's able to tell Kage, don't worry too much about him killing people. He's still Boji in the end. But I'm excited to see where this goes from here. As always, great, fantastic episode. Every episode just has something in it that I just absolutely love. But that's my thoughts on episode 10 of Ranking the Kings. Hope you guys enjoyed this impressions. If you did, leave a like down below, comment, let me know if you saw the episode, subscribe if you haven't already, share this video if you can, support us on Patreon if you can. Definitely appreciate everybody that does, and y'all take care.